And I've got to say, it's been a really good event. It's been really, really good. I've really enjoyed it. There's some really good speakers, and I think I'll just give a short kind of summary now. Talk about some highlights. Perhaps we had some comments as well on what I consider a highlight as well, and a call for the symposium to be undertaken next year as well. Be great. So okay. So firstly, I just want to say a really big thank you. There was so many people involved in delivering this event this year. So from the lead organisers, me, Marsha, David, John Harvey as well, all the track and panel chairs from CBIS and Core, the PGRs that were involved as well in making notes, and also all the administration teams. So Ghazala, Debbie, Rosie and Kate. So without this, it wouldn't be possible to host the symposium without everyone's contribution. So thank you, everyone. Is it going to change? There we go. So to give a short summary of the key themes, I'm going to go through the kind of short summary I gave this morning again, because I thought this was quite useful. And then I've also prepared some kind of key themes of what's been unfolding today. I mean, I haven't been able to go to all the sessions today, but there's been some really kind of timely discussions today, especially in the two panel debates. So from yesterday, we had the theme of food sharing, and this was first talked about by our first keynote speaker, Anna Davis, and she shared some insights on the Share City project. And we learned how food sharing has a really wide definition. It's a practice at the heart of how communities come together and organize around food. And food sharing is not only sharing the food itself, it's sharing knowledge, sharing the resources to make food sharing happen, and it facilitates access to growing food spaces. The role of kind of the digitalization of food sharing also was really prominent yesterday. So in our second keynote speaker, Jamie Crummy from Too Good To Go, emphasized the role of technology in tackling food waste, and talked about how kind of apps like Good To Go allow people to create connections, and really reframed the meaning of what it is to share food. Sharing food is now more accessible than ever, and you can do this through an app in the palm of their hand. And this kind of increasing engagement, I think, is going to be a really kind of mainstay of tackling food waste over the years to come. We also had track C paper presentations that looked at the role of digital platforms as food sharing or sustainable solutions to food, and we interrogated the factors that made food sharing by technological means successful, and what also kind of hampered these applications at the moment. There's also lots of discussions that you say around the perceptions of edibility. So there was a track around food waste, and also kind of consumer discussion around what it means to kind of understand what you can and can't eat. And we talked about some of the solutions to this, like smart labeling, etc. Another prominent theme yesterday was community food groups and what the reality was like over the pandemic on the front line. So their demand for food really increased, and we had some really great insight from a fair share event, and also from a panel discussion on what it was like for community food groups and for organisations that were supplying to these, so fair share and Central England Co-op. We also talked about some research that we undertook in CBIS that exposed the constraints and the kind of enabling factors that enable these organisations to provide the food they did. So moving on, that I also discussed this morning that there's kind of two key themes that I think overarch what was happening yesterday. So the first one is being around the challenges of building resilience in a changing context. There's societal structures that sort of underpin the way that we access and consume food, and it seems like some of these are really in movement at the moment with Brexit and coming out of the pandemic, etc. And I think organisations and individuals are finding it really difficult to sort of put in place sustainable practice because of that, and also the exhaustion that frontline workers and people in the food sector that are seeing at the moment. So that was yesterday. So just to pick out some themes from today. We opened today with a really good keynote presentation from Moya Nisi, professor at the Centre of Agroecology, Water and Resilience, and she talked about the role of territory and territorialism, in place and the role of place in sustainable food systems. This concept of territorial food system really kind of emphasised the fact that the food we eat is kind of centred in places we know, and that relates to the way that food is then governed and how that kind of leads to more sustainable food systems going forward. Moya warned us of the local trap, the fact that if we concentrate on localism too much to do with food, there's dangers that relate to that. We then heard from our second keynote speaker, Professor Suzanne Evans, who discussed the impact of eating together and the kind of psychological side of this. And she showed that whilst eating together can mean that we eat more, it also has kind of positive sides and kind of social benefits of eating together. There's also lots of discussion today around like maybe the diversity and circularity in food systems. So diversity in food systems being something that's quite kind of critical for building resilience. Is not all about one single answer. We kind of can't overlook the fact that there's so many different food cultures around the world. If you pick perhaps Europe as a working area towards a kind of single kind of food policy or whatever it might be, there's so much kind of difference there. There's a food culture and norms around how we purchase food, prepare food and consume food that almost becomes mundane in everyday life. So that perhaps means that solutions need to be kind of culturally sensitive when we imagine what the future of food will look like. I've also picked out there certification and reporting. So we had track presentations today around sustainable sourcing, and we had also a panel discussion around certification. Just to pick a point out of that, the fact that labelling and logos are in the food system, they remain kind of valuable, but almost an exclusive concept that features on products. And they're really important for businesses as a kind of unique selling proposition. I also put two questions there of how informed are decision makers and how do you govern effectively. It seems like there's lots of kind of discussions of what kind of governance looks like going forward, and the decisions being made in the pandemic were really, really influential. We had a good presentation today by Eleanor Boyle, who took us back to World War II and told us that the kind of food conditions in World War II were actually quite was better than the decade before, because Britain could no longer import its food. So 2/3 of food, I think she said, was imported before World War II. That had to be more reliable, and that meant the quality of food actually increased during that time. So I thought that was really, really interesting. I think when we look back in years to come, what will be the kind of result of the decisions being made now? You know, are they effective? Are we being governed effective? Are the people in power that put in place policies, do they know what they need to know, etc. And then the last point I put there is it's kind of a critical time to consider the future of food. I think this symposium is quite timely. In fact, it's happened now. You know, we couldn't have this last year, sadly, but they've had a kind of year of reflection on what happened during the pandemic and the evolving kind of crisis of Brexit as well. It's interesting to see what will this conversation be like in a year's time. And one thing that really stuck with me was the conversation had in the Fair Share event, where there was a question asked around, you know, are we reaching a cliff edge? Are we at the point where community organisations and you know, local councils, etc., you know, something needs to change, and otherwise these organisations are going to kind of dry up and they're not going to kind of run anymore. So that was a reflection I had from today. Okay. I also wanted to say that hopefully this is the start of many conversations. So I really like to keep in touch with many of the people that I've met virtually during these last 2 days, and I put my details there. We have a website, of course, and we're going to post the sessions on there afterwards, and there'll be a short report, etc. And we've discussed producing perhaps a podcast as well that will highlight some of the kind of key arguments and issues that we talked about over the last 2 days. So I really like that to be to continue these discussions. Perhaps they'll lead to collaborations and more work going forward. And the last thing to say is, very cool. I've got that slide in there. Is this is the call as well for the event to take place next year. It would be great if we could hear from perhaps a university or a different organisation that will come forward and take this on. And we can have a Future of Food Symposium 2023, even maybe have this in person, perhaps, as well. So I wondered if David or Marcia have any kind of concluding comments. But I just prepared a short presentation to kind of close the symposium.
Thanks, Jordan. I hope you can all hear me. Thank you, everybody, for staying right through to the end as well. It's been an incredibly informative, interesting and stimulating couple of days. Also pretty draining. I think Jordan's probably going to collapse and sleep for a week after this. Is the amount of effort he's put in to the preparation and indeed the delivery has been extraordinary. So by whatever means you can, please wave, clap, virtually clap, whatever, to give appreciation to Jordan and everybody else who's been involved in putting this together. This event has really emphasized the vital importance of getting people together to chat, to talk, to share ideas and to be constructive and to listen to different viewpoints. And I think one of the really important things about the event has actually been the diversity of groups of people who've joined in. You know, we've had people from retailers, we've got people from all over the world, we've got people from academia, we've got PGRs, we've got people who've been in the academic game for decades, we've got people from practitioner bases, all speaking to each other and trying to find common language and common ideas. And I think that was certainly one of the themes that came through, actually, was that level of multi-stakeholder engagement is absolutely critical in order to move these debates forward and to basically have much better activities going on the ground, because operating in silos is what has caused a lot of the problems we face in the world currently. And I think, you know, we are in a global crisis, there's no doubt about it, and that has so many different strands to it, which have, you know, many of which have actually come up just through talking about food in the last couple of days. And it's incumbent on all of us to keep up our efforts within our own stakeholder groups, you know, in terms of just keeping up the flow of information, ideas and passion to improve things, to make them better. You know, yesterday when we looked at you know, the presentation Marcia gave to you know, involving Fair Share and the Co-op Midlands, it was just very striking how much effort, energy, emotion has gone into just ensuring that food has reached the most needy in the UK in the last 18 months. And of course, we all know the same has been going on in different ways in every single country on the planet. You know, and the work of all those people and their commitment is critical. So we have to, you know, the grassroots always need support and lauding for everything that goes on. But I think my final point would actually be to sort of make a political economy point, really, which again is government. I hate to say it in the UK, government's really important, because at the end of the day, government doesn't just set priorities, it doesn't just write policies, it doesn't just enact policies. Those are all crucial, but it also establishes the narratives and discourses that influence all our behaviors and actions on a daily basis. And I think again, it becomes incumbent on all of us to use whatever means we can to pressurize governments to take these issues seriously and to talk about them seriously, and not just to be looking for you know, greenwashing activities or CSR activities that create a nice image of good things going on, but to genuinely start shifting these systems so that we can have a more socially just future for everybody on the planet. I'm finished. Marcia, if anybody else wants to speak, please do so. Otherwise, I'll hand back to Jordan to do the final whatevers.
Thank you, David, for that final comment. Yeah, I mean, I think that issue of, or maybe not issue, but theme of governance seems to really stand out and kind of come back on itself. I mean, the panel discussion around the mandatory food waste reporting, similar points are made that whilst it's kind of fantastic to have all the knowledge around the best way to address food waste of business, etc., unless those in charge know that, you know, this is the right thing to do, the actions, etc., then kind of limited on how far we can come with that. Yeah, and like you said, the discourse is so important. I hope we've set a discourse going forward in this symposium of what the priorities are, and those issues around food insecurity, food poverty, food waste, circular economy, digitalization of food sharing, etc., and also the kind of alternative food, territorial food network side. Those issues are kind of really prominent at the moment, and I think the issues that have come across the 2 days are evolving constantly. They've been really timely. So I think that's it from me. I haven't got anything further to say, and I just like to thank everyone who was involved in the Future and Food Symposium. I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed working with everyone else as well to put this together. I can see you're there, John. Did you have any final comments you wanted to add?
No, I think I would just echo everything that you said, Jordan and David. I'm blown away by the international variety. And there's such shortcomings to remote conferences in the way that we interact, but at the same time, listening to people in Iran and Indonesia, in Brazil, in Canada, in the same setting, it's extraordinary. And I think that the opportunity to continue this in another forum is just so obvious and so necessary. So yeah, I would say, yeah, let's find an exciting venue and do something hybrid, and so we can kind of keep some of the benefits maybe of remote, whilst also, yeah, getting some of the benefits of in-person too. I'd say, yeah. I mean, it's an open question. I don't think any of us are really precious about what happens to this, but we'd like it to be an open process that everybody can participate. If anybody's got any strong views about what you'd like to see happen with the event, please do get in touch with us as a group. And yeah, excited to see what we could do next.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, talking to some people, it seems like they want to continue their conversation with us and present how their work is developed next year to show us what's happened, etc. So it would be great to see it continue. I had a great opening 2 years ago as well in Nottingham. And I think we could tell from the interest then that this was something that was really kind of poignant and was going to continue.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, excuse the pun, the appetite for it is enormous. So yeah, why not tap into it?
Great. Well, I think that's a good comment to end on. Great. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Oh.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening, wherever you are.